welcome to Careers in a Crunch. I'm your host, Arti Chandarana. The goal of my podcast is to explore many different paths that people have taken to get to where they are in their careers. As a high school student myself, I know that it can be quite difficult to figure out what you want to do in life. So on this podcast, I talk to people from all sorts of professions, hoping to hear about their stories about their professional journey. Today, I'm joined by Kate Mackie, who works as EY's Global Marketing Leader. I'm really excited to learn more about what she does, how she got there, and what advice she has for students just like me. And I want to take a second to thank you for allowing me to interview. I'm super excited to hear about your journey.
Thanks, Arti.
Can you tell us a little bit about your role at EY and what a typical day would look like?
Of course. So my role at EY, I look after all of the global marketing function. So I sit within a function that is brand marketing and communications, and my role is looking after the marketing piece. And that means working across and leading a team that looks after all of the pieces that are buyer focused, audience centric, and really focused on sector programs. So, really looking at how we drive awareness and consideration for EY's products, services, and platforms with our target audience. And that includes things like thought leadership. So, looking at articles on LinkedIn or updating our ey.com website, or making sure that we're messaging the right information to potential buyers to make decisions about why they should buy from EY.
Yeah, that sounds like a super interesting day.
No days the same at all. So I'm always working across different teams, in different time zones, and with different projects that need to be delivered to really drive totally different products and solutions into the market. So we have everything from kind of tax and financial planning, assurance and audit, all the way through to kind of digital transformation and consulting. And lots of people know us for the heritage services like accounting services, but actually we are equally able to consult, to drive transformation projects, and actually we are the transformation partner of choice for many of our clients.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, so my next question is, what led you to a career at EY? Did you always imagine working at a firm like that?
Um, Not really, no. So I remember when I was making kind of I'm from the UK, so my kind of path to college is kind of different. So we do A levels at the end of when we're 18. You choose your A levels, and you generally concentrate on 2 or 3 subjects that you're good at. And so I did chemistry, biology, maths A levels. But the night before I had to make my choices, I decided I was going to do law. I was going to do law, English, and French were going to be my A levels. And then the night before I had to make the choice and sign the piece of paper, I changed to all sciences and maths. So I kind of went through a bit of a moment at that point, thinking, do I do law? Do I do something else? And actually, I decided on the sciences because they were something that really interested me. And that was something that my kind of family had said at the time was, make sure you're doing something you enjoy learning about and you're kind of curious about, because you'll stay motivated. And so I went down the sciencey route, but didn't think that I'd be looking at EY. I think my journey changed when I came back. I did my A levels. I went to university, and then after university, I went traveling for a year. So I went and kind of saw the world and did some things there. And then while I was away, I met a load of people who sounded like they were having really fun jobs in advertising. So I ended up coming back from traveling, coming back from Australia, and moving to London for a job in advertising, kind of starting right at the bottom, and then worked my way up. And as I was working my way up, I worked under lots of different clients. So I worked on charity clients, I worked on financial services, I worked on professional services. And so over the course of kind of 5-6 years working in WPP, which is a really big advertising agency group, I had experience of a number of different industries, and I still didn't think I would end up at EY. It wasn't part of the plan. There's not really been a plan. It was more just do things you enjoy and keep going. And for me, it's always been about staying interested to stay motivated, because if I'm not interested, then I don't really thrive. And so always having jobs that enable me to sit with different problems and solve different issues and enable different outcomes has helped on my career. And so working as a kind of consultant in a creative agency and consultancy was absolutely kind of that whole day to day, changing all the time, doing different things, uncovering different problems or different solutions. So I did that from a creative perspective. Then I kind of moved into data and digital and did that from a different perspective, but still solving problems, solving issues, unlocking, unblocking. And then I was headhunted to go to GE Capital and set up their online savings bank. And we set up the bank and then we closed the bank. And so we did that was a kind of 5-6 year stint at GE Capital. And then after that, I was headhunted to come to EY. And again, it's because I've always been involved in transformation, and particularly kind of building new and really driving change, that they wanted me at EY because there was a whole host of change that's being driven at that point. And so I came here more because of the task to be done and the job to be done than EY itself. But actually, finding out a bit about EY has meant that I've now been here 9 years, and no day is the same. And I'm still interested. I'm still kind of uncovering other things I can do and different kind of careers that I can have in the same job. So there's a whole host of things. I think for me, it's always been about just maintaining interest, continuous learning, and kind of really helping myself with a curious appetite to kind of get to where I need to get to.
Yeah, very nice. I really like the idea of like, staying interested keeps you motivated, doing something you love, you have a passion for. That's something like I think really important. And you mentioned that you had your like the sciences. Did you ever have like a job in like science that
No, not at all, because what happened was so I did my science A levels, and then I went to university to do chemistry. So I went to do chemistry and management, and chemistry had 30 hours of labs every week, which I lived in a house of people who didn't do sciences. They were all doing like English or history, or and their hours per week were a lot less, because I did 30 hours of labs and then like 6 to 10 hours of lectures. They just did the lectures. And so it felt like the right thing to move out of the science piece. It wasn't inspiring me, and it was mostly about physics, which I found really hard. So I was doing a triple honours. So I did chemistry, management, and history and philosophy of science. So that was, again, kind of the why behind decision making in science. And so we did things like the ethics of AI. Even back then, we were doing kind of ethics of AI, and this is like the late 90s. So it's a long time ago. But after my first year, I dropped all of the chemistry and just did management and history and philosophy of science, which meant that I moved from a science degree to an arts degree. And so I majored in history and philosophy of science. And that meant that my degree was not really scientific anymore. I mean, it was about the philosophy of science rather than science itself. And so that kind of led me down a path of doing non-science roles and non-science jobs.
yeah,
So I never really worked in science at all.
yeah, but I feel like, it was kind of like part of like, your path. You started off, but found something that maybe was like meant,
More
you know.
interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. It's like, for me, I just think you can make yourself do anything. We can all motivate ourselves to work really hard. But if you're not interested in it and it doesn't kind of keep you excited, then you're probably not going to do your best work. And you're probably not going to thrive as much as you could if you find something that you're really passionate about and interested in. And mine has always been kind of solving problems and fixing stuff. So mine's much more about like the transformation piece than it is about what I'm transforming. And I find that really interesting, to be able to kind of look at what the potential for something could be and then work out how you get there.
Yeah, that's very true, you want to have like the motivation to do it, not just because you have to or, you
Yeah,
can. Yeah.
exactly.
So when you applied for your job at EY, was there a specific like goal you wanted to achieve throughout your time, and has that goal changed over time?
So when I started in my role at EY, because they approached me, my main objective was to connect marketing to revenue. So in most kind of B2C companies where you're selling Coca-Cola or a Samsung phone or whatever it might be, then you can see the direct the direct outcomes and impacts that driving a marketing investment kind of delivers. And in professional services, it's really hard. You can do it, but it's really hard. And we weren't doing it quite as well as we probably should have been or could have been. And so that became my kind of primary objective, was to connect marketing to revenue and really show the impact of marketing as a commercial growth lever. And so that was 2017. And so I've been working through that, or 2016, November 2016. And so I've been working kind of to that goal like over the years, and it's been one of those things that has meant that there have been jigsaw pieces to build and transform that then need to end up in the right space and the right value chain to be able to show that marketing can drive revenue, because ultimately EY is a professional services firm or organization of firms that our people are our business, so our people do the selling. So it's not, you're not buying off a website, you're not able to track direct attribution to marketing, to revenue. You have to look at the influence of marketing and look at how it's driving an impact through the external audience, but also really importantly, the internal audience. And so for me, that was and still is a really big thing. So how do we make sure that people understand that marketing can really drive revenue and is a growth lever for the business?
Yeah, that's a great goal. You mentioned you do a lot of you said like transformations.
Yep.
Like what exactly are sort of like transformations in terms of like your role at like UI?
So back in 2016, when I joined, our marketing technology platforms were kind of behind the curve, so they weren't necessarily as where they should be, for a firm that's trying to really look at how we sell kind of digital and the like. So we set up a project that was Digital Fast Forward, and I worked with a team that I wasn't leading that project, but I was part of the kind of project team. I was in tax at the time, and we drove the change and the transformation from something that was quite outdated to something that was first in the market. And so now a lot of what we're doing is kind of client zero work on ourselves, where we transform ourselves to show that the impact can be for some of our clients. So we were client zero for the Adobe real-time CDP, which is a customer data platform where you're looking at how do you pull all individual data into one place, so that you can really see any of the signals that those individuals are showing from a buyer perspective. And it was the first time it had been done for a B2B audience rather than a B2C. And so we've moved from kind of something that was quite behind the curve to something that's right at the front of the curve. And so we've been doing lots of kind of technical transformations in the back end to make sure that all of our technology stack is up to date and best in class.
Oh, got it. Thank you so much. That sounds, super, super interesting. So my next question is, what's one of like your proudest achievements so far?
For me, in the last 3 years ago, I was promoted to partner, and getting to partner as a non-equity, getting to partner as a non-fee earner means that you've had to prove that you're driving impact and value outside of the direct book of business. And so that took a couple of years to really work through the business case, the impact I was driving, and really prove the case for an equity partner in marketing, which meant that I had to prove that marketing really is a growth lever and that the role was important enough to be at the partner level. And then after that, it was about proving that I was capable of doing that job as well and going through that process. And then another thing that I've been really proud of is I published a book in May this year. And I wrote it last year by getting up an hour early and going to bed an hour later, and kind of really delivering the words on a kind of word count basis. Okay, I was really disciplined about it, and being able to get that out and published and kind of successfully launched has been something that I never thought I'd be able to do. So I'm really proud of that as well.
Yeah, those are two amazing and incredible achievements. And I was actually going to ask about your book. What was it sort of like, I guess, going through like the process of writing it and then, finally getting it published and all that?
So I was approached by the publisher I'm trying to think what year we're in, November 2023, to put a proposal together for a book, because I'd been writing LinkedIn blogs and doing bits and bobs all over the place, and they said they thought that there was space for a B2B marketing book that was targeted very specifically at people who kind of were in more junior ranks. It's not a kind of top end strategy CXO type book. It's absolutely about it's like a workbook that you can work through to really drive a marketing plan together and really put the right things together. And it took me ages to sign the contract because I was really nervous about being able to deliver it with a big, I've got two small kids. At the time, my daughter was 9, and my son was 7. And so it was one of those where I was trying to work out whether I'd actually be able to do it, whether I'd be able to fit it in with everything else that I kind of had commitments to. And it was my daughter that said to me, well, Mummy, you seem to watch a lot of TV in the evenings. I'm sure if you didn't do that, you'd be able to fit it in. It's like, that's my downtime. But she was right. And after that, I couldn't really say no, because otherwise it would have looked like I was prioritizing TV over actually getting it done. And then I had from May to the September to kind of write it and get it done because the proposal was approved. And I worked out how many words I had to submit and and broke that down by the days that I had to write them. And then I just wrote 511 words every day. So that was my thing, 511 words, write it, doesn't matter what it's like, and then edit the next day. So just get the words out and edit yesterday's words. And so that became a process that I just worked through for that whole kind of period. And then I submitted kind of on a quarterly basis to the publisher, who came back with edits, and it just all came together in the end. And I had some really good contributors who I approached to kind of give me their ideas, and they were all really fabulous in terms of giving me great insight that I could bring into the book as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then you mentioned that you also wrote some like LinkedIn blogs like prior to getting like asked by the publisher. Were those also sort of about like marketing fundamentals or?
Yeah, they were. So I kind of, one of the things that we do in marketing is tell other people how to do their social media, but you don't always do it yourself. And so as part of the recruitment process or promotion process for a partner, we have to think about what we're doing for the business, what we're doing for kind of our teams, and what we're doing for our functions, and make sure that the way that we're really being positioned externally gives us the right profile to become a partner. So I'd been challenged by Karen, my boss, to kind of focus on that space. And she'd said, right, you need to, you do it for other people, do it for yourself. And so I'd sat down and worked out what are the things that I am passionate about, that I'm interested in and could write about. And that was, science, marketing technology, but also a bit of like the marketing fundamentals. So it was a kind of mix of those three.
Oh, that's nice. So it's sort of when you were writing your book, kind of what you had been doing from from like your social media posts kind of contributed to
made a bit bigger.
Oh, nice.
And also I lecture at Cambridge University, so I'd been a contributing lecturer to Cambridge on a couple of occasions, just kind of talking about being a case study really, and the way I'd written that case study became part of how I started to think about the structure of the book as well.
Oh, that's really cool. What was it like being a lecturer at Cambridge?
The first time I went in was really scary because it's this massive institution. But again, they were just talking to me about my journey and my career and that sort of stuff. So it's not a difficult topic because you know it really well. It's just you don't necessarily think it's going to be of interest to people. And then going through the process with the university and talking to some of the students and kind of mentoring some of those individuals around the edges through other programs as well, it just meant that I realized that what I was able to contribute was actually really impactful and important, and was giving back to those people who didn't necessarily have the experience or skills that I'd gleaned over time.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. So my next question is, what's something about working at a firm like EY that most people don't realize?
So EY is probably one of the largest technology firms in the world. People think of us potentially from accountancy, from consultancy and that sort of background. But actually we have a huge amount of technologists. We work with a whole host of brilliant called partners and ecosystem alliance partners. So real big kind of technology businesses. And we are building AI into everything that we do. And we're already thinking about how we drive agentic into all of our functions and how we're enabling a really different future across all of our businesses. and the fact that we have 400,000 people. There's 400,000 people at EY, and we're in 140 plus countries. We are really big, but people don't necessarily know what we do from a full breadth. And I think it's always worth looking at those big brands and those big organizations, because there's generally a lot of room to move once you're in. If you think about, if you're looking for what your career might be long term, going to an organization that has multiple opportunities is a great option, because you can move around once you're inside somewhere like EY.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I did not know. So, some like new information. And you mentioned, you guys of course use like AI and all like the marketing. Has sort of like the way you've been using AI with all like the advancements, has that like changed with all like the new like technology and AI?
Um, yes, I mean, we've had an AI practice since 2012. So we've been really utilizing machine learning, RPA for a long time. So it's just another kind of step in that journey. But I think what's really taken off is the fact that we can use our internally built large language model as a thought partner. So you can use it as an initial draft for anything that you're doing, and particularly in marketing, when you might be writing emails, you might be writing an article, you might be writing content. And it's a fantastic place to start from a kind of creative perspective, and can really help you augment your thinking around what might be a better way of constructing your story or your narrative. And I think as we move forward, we're only scratching at the surface in terms of what we can do. And a lot of what we're doing right now is making sure that our AI and our assets are all data ready. Sorry, our data and our assets are all AI ready, so that we can really enable AI, to have the full impact across our kind of workflows and creative development, but making sure that we really augment what we're doing from a human perspective, so that we're always bringing kind of what is it that matters to our audiences back and through the thinking, which is where I think humans play a huge part in the kind of human AI conversation.
Yeah, I think AI has definitely become a lot more common in today's world. Going into like advice, if you could go back and give your high school self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't stress about anything. Like, it doesn't matter. The amount, I mean, do your best as much as you can. But actually, once you've got into university or college, what you did at school, people don't really look at again. So it's really important that you do what you are interested in, so that you stay motivated and stay kind of in it. But don't, enjoy it, because you're out of school for a lot longer than you're in school, and school gives you so many opportunities. I just think take every opportunity, be curious, and just don't worry about the future.
I think that that's like definitely such an important thing to note, just because, a lot of times it's like so stressful to think about, the stuff that you maybe want to do in the future, right? But you're not, there's like so many different subjects and things to like, you can learn and study about, right? So maybe sort of like taking a break and like focusing on like the moment and like what's like important right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I asked my 9-year-old son the other day what he wanted to be when he grew up, and he just looked at me and rolled his eyes, which he does a lot. And he said, "Oh, mummy, the jobs I'm going to do aren't even invented, so I'm just having fun."
That's
Like,
the,
this is
definitely
amazing.
definitely true though. Like there's so many more things that are out there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess sort of going to my last question, if
Mhm.
I know you said that for you would like say like don't like stress, but is there what advice would you give to maybe students who are thinking about having a career like yours, or also like any skills that they could focus on?
So I would say soft skills are really important. Actually, the hard skills, the kind of technical skills are probably the pieces that are going to be able to be done by, or augmented by kind of AI or tech. But actually, the piece that is hugely important is being curious, being agile, and kind of being able to have critical thinking about things. So knowing when you are reading something that you have to think about the sources. So you have to think about, where has that information come from? Check the source, make sure it's not made up, and have real kind of an understanding of of how kind of persuasive writing, how critical thinking can really help you as you move forward. So I would say concentrate on things that drive you to absolutely embrace the different skills that might be out there that are more human rather than technical. Unless you want to be a doctor or anything that's properly kind of you've got to be trained on, you've got to be good at.
Yeah, I think those are super important skills, right, to learn at any age, any time. But yeah, thank you so much. This was like amazing.
Oh, that's okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Before,
having me.
yeah, of course, this was like so interesting and amazing. Yeah, just thank you so much for sharing your story. It's super important for, like high schoolers to hear that, right? There's so many different paths out there, and figuring out like your own is definitely a part of the journey.
Yeah,
And
that was great.
yeah, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to say to anyone, students, anyone who's
So,
listening?
well, I would say just, you know, there's never a right path because you don't know. Like, I've never had a career plan. I've never thought where I've wanted to be. I've just followed the interesting opportunities that have kind of come my way. And I've always ended up doing things that I'm interested in and things that have kind of given me stretch. And so, just see every potential role or opportunity as something that you might learn from or something you might get, more information out of. And you might find things that you want to do, but you also might find things that you don't want to do. And that's a good enough outcome as well, because if you know something you don't want to do, that narrows down what you do. And so I think just see everything as a positive opportunity.
Yeah, that's also such like an important thing to know. Yes, thank you so much.
No worries.
Have an
Have a
amazing
great day.
day.
Thank you.
Bye
Thank you very much.
bye.
Bye.
That's it for this episode of Careers in a Crunch. If you found today's conversation helpful and informative, be sure to share it with a friend or family member. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an interview. Thank you. Bye bye.